Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Daily Record Betting Show, where we will attempt to guide you in the direction of some weekend profits. It's week 2 in the Scottish football leagues, and it also gets underway in the EFL south of the border, which is a staple for many people who put their coupons on over the weekend. We'll go into the ante-post markets for the EFL. We've also got a nice double-figure price for the opening weekend for one of the teams. But first, it's Scotland. And who better to join us again than Fraser Mackey? Off to an absolute flyer last week with his shout for Luke McCowan to score first or last in the Dundee derby. 14-1, Fraser. A flying start. No pressure. Well done.
Oh, cheers, Swanee. Thank you. It was a nice start last weekend. Slightly false step from Dundee. I was maybe expecting a wee bit more from them since we put them up as a bet as well, and obviously a match bet for the season with Dundee United. But I think there was enough encouragement there. It was interesting you flagged up last week as well the potential for maybe one of the boys we mentioned for Dundee, Luke McCowan, or one of the lads or Lyle Cameron maybe to be interested in other clubs. And obviously Hibs and Bolton have come in for McCowan, but hopefully Dundee can hold firm with that one, and he can be part of the team going forward.
We're kind of back in the same circles we were last weekend, Fraser, in some respects, given the fact in England we're getting the anti-post stuff started. I know it's a big thing for you. You got us going last week with the Scottish ones, and again, that same excitement will be there with the English lower leagues getting going.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done a lot of work in the last few weeks or so on the English anti-post, the lower leagues, League 1, League 2, Championship. I found League 1 very tough this year. League 2 has lost a lot of their kind of bigger teams that are going to go through the league. Stockport, Wrexham, teams with money. So there's some interesting bets I fancy putting up there this week. One to watch in League 1 is Birmingham, who are incredibly short. They're the team that have spent all the money. So I'll let you know if I fancy them. And there's also a big each way against them, I hope, as well.
There's big, I should promise people, there's big double-figure shouts coming up in England for the season ahead from Fraser, so stay tuned for that. But we'll start in Scotland. 3 games in the Premiership on Saturday, Fraser, all in different ways, kind of tricky to get into. Rangers trying to get started at Hampden against Motherwell. Dundee United go to Ross County. Dundee and Hearts, both teams involved in exciting games last week, but just a point each. Dundee Hearts is a live TV game at night. Sunday starts with Celtic going to Hibs. They don't always do well at Easter Road, but Celtic were impressive on the opening day. Kilmarnock and St Johnstone will be looking for their first points of the season when they meet at Rugby Park. Kilmarnock obviously coming off the back of that European tie against Tromsø on Thursday night. Another team coming off a European tie and a late goal are St Mirren, and they face the prospect of tackling Aberdeen, who you saw in their opening game of the season in the Premiership, Fraser, at St Johnstone, and I think you were impressed enough to consider them as a bet this weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I'm drawing on the experience of watching both Aberdeen last Monday night here at McDermott Park, and also St Mirren last night in Europe. Now, I was at Paisley last night and saw them, and these St Mirren players have reserves of resilience that are just almost unheard of. Such a well drilled team by Stephen Robinson. They're absolutely something else. And Jimmy Thellum was sitting just a few seats away, and I suppose he must have been buoyed in some sense by what he saw, in that St Mirren got a bit of a runaround from a very classy brand team that dragged them this way and that way through most of the first half. But he'll certainly also have noted that this Stephen Robinson unit is a team that you find very difficult to put away. Now, listen, I know Saints bounced back from European exertions last week when they stormed through against Valur and then beat Hibs 3-0 at the weekend on Sunday. Now, that was after they had got their job done. They got to the next round. I couldn't escape my notice against Hibs that in that first half, and the manager himself, Stephen Robinson, did admit they were a bit sloppy, a little bit sluggish. Now, if that was the case last weekend against Hibs, then I think it's going to be even more amplified this weekend, because that was an incredible effort to come back and get a draw against Brann to take over to that second leg. And if they repeat their first half performance against Hibs last week against Aberdeen on Sunday, I feel there's a chance they'll get caught out. Aberdeen came out the traps at McDermott Park really, really quickly. They were slick in that first half against St Johnstone, and they really, if it wasn't for Josh Ray in goals, I think they could have been maybe 3, maybe even 4 up at half time. I totally excuse.
It was encouraging. It was very encouraging for Aberdeen fans.
It was, yeah. There's enough there for them to think that they're not going to be a bottom 6 team this year at all. So I saw the odds against for Aberdeen, and I took a bit of that as well. And I was particularly after what I saw last night with St Mirren's effort. I feel odds against is perfectly fair to take. That Thursday night coming up is the biggest game of these St Mirren players' lives. It's only natural that it's going to be in their mind that is looming. Obviously, watch your bets for perhaps Bojan Miovski. Will he be featuring? He did play against St Johnstone, led the line superbly. He may be off, but it only leaves a place open for either Esther Sokler or Ambrose, the new strikers, to come in and say, well, I'm going to be the guy. Sivert Nielsen was great in the middle of the park, pulling all the strings alongside Graham Shinnie, although Shinnie did maybe tire later on against Saints. I just think if there's going to be an edge taken off St Mirren to some extent by the fact it's right bang in the middle of the European exertions, and it's only natural it would have an impact. Listen, if Aberdeen were odds on, I wouldn't be getting involved. The fact I saw bits of 21 to 10 and a little bit of 11 to 10 available was of interest to me for this one.
I think you had an idea for a scorer maybe in this game as well after last week with your Luke McCowan idea, Fraser. There was maybe something that was sticking out for you, maybe, despite the fact you're sure about them getting a result.
Yeah, just something to bear in mind after what happened last night. Look, I'm not ruling out St Mirren getting a goal here, and if you are looking at any-time goal scorer market, then the one to definitely consider, and there's a bit of an edge to be gained perhaps here, is Toyosi Olusanya. He was their hero last night, obviously, with that dramatic equaliser against Brann. Now, he got half an hour's action, and the thing is, he picked up a booking in the game, so he'll be suspended. He was also booked against Valur, so he's suspended from Thursday night's trip to Norway. So there's a guy who Stephen Olsen's surely going to play up front from the start and give him the bulk of the game, maybe even up to 80, 90 minutes, although he does ensure he does rotate his strikers during games. But with him being banned, his mind's not going to be at any point on Thursday night and their Europa Conference League game. So he's 100 to 30 with Bet365 to score any time, and he'll pair with either Ayunga or Mandron, I guess, but you can be guaranteed that of the 3 big guys up front that he likes, Olusanya will start this game. So I think he's 130 for any time goal scorer.
Okay. That wraps up the Scottish Premiership. The Championship last week, I don't think I'm being unkind to say it was a sluggish start. It didn't really fire off in the way we had hoped, although there was a win for the betting show with Airdrie winning at 13-8 against Wraith Rovers. Another cracker from Fraser there. Some terrific fixtures at the weekend. Dunfermline Falkirk obviously has down the years been a great game. Partick Thistle go to Wraith. Partick stuttered a wee bit last week, didn't get off to the start that they wanted, but there is obviously turmoil at Starks Park. I think when Fraser put up Airdrie to beat Wraith, he wasn't expecting Ian Murray to lose his job over it. But Thistle are a price. Thistle are around about 2-1 at Starks Park, which may be of interest. Fraser, I don't know if you have a view on that, but I know that you do have a definite view on what's going on at Capello in terms of the Championship. That's one of your other main bets for the weekend.
Yeah, look, I will touch on the one you like, that Thistle, something like 2-1 perhaps away at Wraith. Normally when a team changes manager, you're looking for, even if it's a caretaker in charge, you're looking at perhaps a positive bounce because there's something chronically wrong, because the players didn't like the manager, because they'll all of a sudden start playing again perhaps with a freedom. But I can see where you're coming from with going with Thistle there, because I think the decision to sack Ian Murray after just one game undoubtedly would have taken the camp aback, and it did seem a very, very strange call given that they got all the way to the playoff final last year when I don't think they were, top of the market, hugely favoured to do so. So I'm not sure if Raith will get a bit of a bounce. There seemed to be a bit of a staleness about them last weekend when I saw. Wasn't terribly impressed with them, but nothing I would say chronically wrong to go and dismiss your manager. So I think I wouldn't be confident about Raith all of a sudden bouncing back because the manager's gone, and I'll be perfectly comfortable to back your thoughts on Thistle there. But there was just one I liked in the division, and it's probably just one again where I just feel has just been a team underestimated, and it's Morton at Campbell. They're a team that every time I seem to see them at home, they just put in a terrific performance. Terrible side to play against on their home turf. They make life so difficult for you. And again, it's the odds against factor. I don't understand why they've been on the drift for the last 48 hours or so. I saw about 65 with William Hill for them to beat Hamilton, who are obviously a newly promoted side, and Morton finished 5th in the league last year. I know there's been a lot of change. Again, maybe wouldn't be a better odds on, but taking 65 I'm perfectly comfortable with. Dougie Emery's team, to me, are consistently underrated, even on that 13-match unbeaten run, which saw them knock out Motherwell from the Scottish Cup last year and maybe put themselves in the frame for a playoff place. Listen, they shouldn't be troubling the promotion places, I don't think. They've got a fairly limited budget, but at Capello, they're so tough to beat. They've been a bit unlucky with sort of defensive injuries, particularly at the heart of defence this season. But I see Morgan Boyce was back at Firhill. Clean sheet there, I think, on the first day of the season was a nice achieve for them. And I see J. Emmanuel Thomas should hopefully strip a bit fitter after his outing against Partick.
The Jet.
And the Jet, yeah. So he's played at a higher level, obviously. And I think he's perfect to play in a Dougie Emery team. I saw Aki's did okay, I think, in the losing to Ayr. There was no shame in that. Hit the woodwork twice last weekend.
I think Scott Brown's team are going to be good this year, so...
so no shame in that, I don't think, for Aki's, but I don't think there's any Lee Kildare for them. Captain's banned after his red card, Scott Martin, so I'm happy to put up my championship bet at the weekend is Morton at 6-5 to beat Hamilton.
Okay, Leagues 1 and Leagues 2. Again, we said last week that they were tricky and they were tight. There's a few short prices in there with some of the favoured teams, which probably be avoided at this stage, but yet not enough in there to convince you to take the bigger prices on the outsiders. I think Elgin at a price having scored 4 goals last week, but that again, I think Fraser made a very good point last week about there can be overreactions to opening day results. So it was one I think we both agreed, Fraser, was maybe just best to keep the powder dry in Leagues 1 and League 2 in Scotland this week. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, unless you would, you could suggest, a team like East Fife should bounce back. It's a short one, but if you wanted to chuck them into your ACC as a 1-, they did get beat on the opening day. Maybe that 1-3 doesn't look too bad if to throw into trebles and accumulators against Edinburgh City. So I don't think Dick Campbell will accept a second successive defeat.
No. On to England, the start of the EFL, where there seems to be about 16 games every 3 days. It's fantastic. It's great for it's something that I know a lot of the punters also in Scotland get stuck into. There's so many midweek fixtures. There's so many opportunities for, I know a lot of guys like both teams to score and those types of coupons. There's always interest in those. Fraser, we'll go into some depth in the ante-post markets if we could with you, please. After we discuss, I know you've got one. You've got a team that you like as a single bet for the opening weekend of the EFL season. Could you tell us about that, please? Yeah,
again, it's a team I want to be against for the season, up against a team that I think will perhaps threaten the playoffs and I think might be underrated. So the game's Hull against Bristol City, and I'm going to go with the away side, Bristol City, in this one at 9-4. Well, you'll certainly get bigger than 2-1. I don't think that'll be a problem. Hull's Turkish owner is burning through managers since he took over, starting with Shota Arveladze, and he got rid of the excellent Liam Rosenior last season after he just finished outside the playoff places.
That was a strange one, wasn't it? That was a really strange one. He did a really good job, didn't he?
Yeah, Yeah, just by 3 points they missed out.
Yeah.
So, listen, I feel that could be something he might regret. He's going down the old German youth system angle, which has been favoured by quite a lot of Championship clubs to some effect in recent years. They've got Tim Walter in, and he's going to need to get to know the division. I don't think Hull are in for a terrible season. It depends how trigger happy, I suppose, the owner wishes to be. They've just been a little bit slow in getting signings together, and they may be better come the end of August. But for the moment, they're a team that I was looking to oppose on the first day of the season. And when I saw they were up against Bristol City, I was pleased to note that City were a price. Liam Manning's a manager that I've been following for a few years, and I like. He got MK Dons almost into the Championship 2 years ago, just narrowly failing after getting through in the playoffs. Set the foundations for Oxford going up last year before moving to Bristol City and replacing Nigel Pearson. So I think they're booked for a run, perhaps to be top half, possibly threatening the playoffs. And I'd be perfectly happy if they can get off to a winning start on Saturday at Hull.
The ante-post betting for the English Championship, Fraser, is a fascinating affair. Usually you would have a situation where the teams who dropped from the Premier League would be maybe shorter than what they are. And I know a couple of them certainly interest you when you're looking at the season as a whole. I should say that these leagues are going to be great to get into this season. If you like watching your football on the television, you're going to have access to virtually every Championship game you're going to have access to. I think it might be the same in the other leagues as well. So you're always going to have an interest through the season. So with that in mind, Fraser, these anti-post bets can be both valuable and enjoyable. And as I say, in the Championship, a couple of teams who lost their way in the Premier League have attracted your attention for that second tier.
Yeah, I should actually just add, watch your bets at the weekend, because there's a couple of games tonight. I'm going to mention Sheffield United. They kick off tonight. And the Championship games are all on. The rest of them are on, other than Sheffield Wednesday on Sunday. The rest of them are all on at 12:30 on Saturday, because for TV, they're all going to be live. So
nothing worse than you miss a 12:30 kick-off, isn't it? When there's one you fancy and you just forget and it's 12:30, it kills you.
Well, let's not do that. This is why we're mentioning this. Make sure if you're chucking Championship teams into your ACCAs the weekend, then make sure we're on early. Listen, great place to start in the Championship is the fact that you said, the teams going down are normally the first point of contact to say, well, what kind of shape are they in to go back up? But normally they would feature as one of the favourites. But Leeds are 3-1 favourites. They're a team I want to take on this season. Listen, it could easily be up there. I'm not complaining about that, but between 5-2 and 7-2, it wouldn't be for me, given that, yes, I know they got a lot of points, but more worryingly for me was the fact they've got rid of a couple of really key players from that, Somerville to West Ham. I guess they could probably have done with Archie Graystein as well. But listen, the more thing that worried me was the way Daniel Farke's team kind of ducked it when they had a real opportunity to put Leicester and Ipswich away last season. Those two teams were in their dodgy spell just at that time, sort of early March, and Leeds had a huge win over Leicester at home. They failed to build on it, and I think that's a little bit of a negative. Listen, the two teams are picked out, and listen, for years, relegated teams went down to the Championship, and some of them could disappear. Sunderland, Stoke, Derby. But the recent trend is for a bounce back. You noticed, obviously, Southampton went straight back up. Leicester did that last season. So I'd be surprised if one or two didn't figure. On that score, I'm actually going to favour the two teams at the bigger prices and ignore Burnley under Scott Parker, who are a little bit shorter. And I'm going to favour Luton at 12-1 and Sheffield United, who are probably my main fancy because they're a massive price at 16-1. And one of the things to point out about that is that they're probably priced up on the fact that what a dismal Premier League campaign they had last year, even under Chris Wilder, who some people might think, well, I don't want to get with this guy anymore because he had such a poor season at the end of, after taking over the Blades last season. he didn't seem to get much of a tune out of them, and he's had a bad time at Middlesbrough and Watford. But I still think it's a match made in heaven between Wilder and Sheffield United. And I would just ignore last season. I would wipe the slate completely clean. This is a guy who knows exactly what to do in the Championship. He's had them promoted before. He's got the guys in who I think can do a job for them. I like Callum O'Hare from Coventry. He's taken Harry Souttar from Leicester. And I would just ignore the back end of last season and just trust that Wilder at 16-1 can get Sheffield United motoring. And I don't see a problem either with Luton at 12-1. Rob Edwards signed a new contract, committed to the job. I think we're all impressed with the job he did despite the relegation from the Championship. Yes, they've lost the best player, Ross Barkley, from last year, but he wasn't in the Championship 2 years ago. It's a different discipline, and that's what you have to remember.
Sorry to break in, but I think that's key with the Chris Wilder thing as well, isn't it? Because it looks to me, as you have pointed out, that the layers have been taken into account the results for Chris Wilder in the Premier League when the heads were already down. It was the morale, the whole thing was shattered at Bramall Lane when he walked in the door. He tried to salvage it, but at the end of the day, he just didn't have the quality at his disposal. But as you've pointed out, Wilder has proven at this level. He's also proven with that club. I mean, the attachment between him and that club is just something else. And he really gets it, and he has a local, and that. I think that's a fantastic price. I've got to say, I think it's a great shout by you. I think 16-1 is a huge price for them.
He'll now have a team that's Championship ready. You pluck in guys who did well in the division last year, and they're going to be the guys that play, not the guys who, have fallen out the Premier League and were barely good for them, but just don't fit with the Championship and what's needed over that 46 game stretch. So,
and in a similar way that guys will go through walls for Wilder. You got the impression by listening to the Luton players that they do the same for Rob Edwards. He's so well liked there. Yeah,
exactly, and don't forget that their home record as well in the Championship was absolutely stunning. For 2 years in a row when they went up, and how unlucky were they against some of the big guns in the Premier League as well? Losing late goals, so
heartbreak goals at the end constantly.
Yeah, they've dropped down a level, but know exactly what it takes. So just the fact that those two are the double figure prices, I think has underestimated their ability to get the job done over the course of the season in the Championship.
Yeah, great interest that on a weekly basis as well. If you don't, as we touched on last week, if you get involved in the ante-post markets, you get the chance to follow a team every week, whether you've got a fancy for a particular weekend bet or not, and at double figure odds for those two, Fraser. I think they're both tremendous shouts. I think they will both go close. League One, a sort of two-pronged attack you've got to go for this one. You obviously realise the fancied team. I've got every possibility that they could go and do the business, but obviously taking an approach against them with a sort of safer option. Can you explain just how you're going to go about England's League One from an ante-post point of view?
Yeah, okay. Well, listen, Birmingham, obviously the team with a vast amount of money to investment in this season, and they've gone from, I don't know what the opening shout was, it might have been as big as 7-2 or something like that. I certainly saw some 3-1 around now. They're now 2-1, so if you're playing just now, then it's a cover shot at best, but I think they're a cover shot that's worth having on your side. They could just be different gear altogether. They went and got Alfie May from Charlton, who was the top scorer in the division last season, and they might even get Jay Stansfield back. He scored, I think, 13 for them last season on loan from Fulham. They could be paying for him as well. The boss they've went for is, after a lot of upheaval in the hot seat last season, is Chris Davis, who Celtic fans will remember as being a Brendan Rodgers number 2, really well regarded coach. So I suppose there's a question mark over him going into management. He's most recently worked with Ange Postecoglou as well. But they've looked really impressive in pre-season. I think they've got a win over Rangers and a win over West Brom. And I don't want to dwell too much on friendlies, but I'm told they looked terrific and looked like a team that could be competing up at the top end of the Championship, never mind the top end of League One. So, listen, it can be a grind for teams that have fallen down, and some have struggled to get back up. You look at Sunderland, teams like that over the years, but I think now the structure looks right at Bournemouth. They've got a good young coach with the prospect of being a great manager, a good manager, and fair play to the way they've gone about their business this summer to try and get things right after a chaotic time.
Yep.
And while I don't think 2-1 is a giveaway. In fact, it's not a great price, but it would cover you if you're cover your stake for what the team that I do fancy to run a huge race as well. In fact, I prefer Birmingham at 2-1 than Leeds at 3-1. So I feel a lot of the quality's gone out of this division. Last season was quite a kind of strong heat in League One. But it does leave us with Rotherham and manager Steve Evans, who was in the division last year with Stevenage, flirted with the playoffs before ultimately finishing 9th and leaving for Rotherham just before the end of the season. So he got a little handle on what's needed at Rotherham. They're the ultimate yo-yo club, aren't they? You can back them to go up from League One and then back them for relegation for the Championship. So that's the way to go with them. But listen, Evans is just a guy for punters to have on their sides. He's won promotions with 5 different clubs. Rotherham, he got them up from League 2 all the way to the Championship, and incredibly managed to keep them in there one season as well a few years ago when they'd one of the poorest budgets in the league. He's just a guy who you can hang your hat on in the division, who knows the job. He's went and got Johnson Clark-Harris, 2-time League One top goal scorer with Peterborough, absolute stick-on for goals. Sean Raggett, who helped Portsmouth get up, just a perfect centre-half for the division. He's decided to stick with League One. And he's taken his old pal Alex McDonald, former Scotland under-21 internationalist from Stevenage to run the dressing room. So, listen, all the ingredients are in place, and that 11-1 each way is a thing of beauty.
Thing of beauty. And as we discussed with Chris Wilder and Rob Edwards, Steve Evans is one of those Pied Piper type managers, isn't he? If he gets it going, as he has done at that club before, it'll just galvanise the place and they'll just get some momentum going. He is that type of manager who can really get it flowing. And as you say, he's got the history, he's got the past there, so there's every reason to think that he can do it again. League Two, Fraser in England will be its usual cutthroat self, but I know you have a strong fancy. There seems to be a bit of a Yorkshire flavour to the ante-post markets, and you have another team from that part of the world as you look at League Two.
Yeah, League Two I found probably the toughest this year. A succession of teams have been backed from bigger prices throughout the summer. The fanciest one being MK Dons, who are on the eve of the season are probably now actually threatening Chesterfield for favouritism. Their manager Mike Williamson got a real tune out of them second half of last season, got a run towards playoffs. Plays some great football, committed to that. You might think that might not work in League Two, but that's what they're going to do. Doncaster, who had a wild late run again to go from being relegation candidates under Grant McCann all the way up again to threatening, and punters seem to think again they're going to carry on where they left off last season. And the other two interesting, they're the two interesting clubs who've been backed for certain, but I think we probably missed the price on those two. And I'm going to turn to another guy who, in these divisions, is just one that I think you can trust, and it's Graham Alexander at Bradford City. Now his team are 14-1, and to me, there's more value in that when I think they're going to be up there challenging. And the other teams are maybe sort of around 8-1, 9-1 mark. I'd rather have Bradford on my side. Alexander, as we know, went to Motherwell after doing great jobs at Fleetwood, Scunthorpe, promotions with them. And again, much in the way I mentioned, MK Dons almost getting promoted under Liam Manning to the Championship. Graham Alexander a few years ago almost got Scunthorpe up. And they kind of took fright when they might not have gotten into the playoffs, and he left the club just before the end of that season, and look what happened to them since. So I think he got a bit of a raw deal at Motherwell, having saved them from relegation, then got them into Europe.
Yeah, Sligo Rovers was just the final straw, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sligo Rovers fans didn't like the style of football, so maybe Motherwell fans have enjoyed their style of football in the bottom six the last 2 seasons instead. I don't know, but I know Alexander had a short spell in charge of MK Dons last season. I think both of them agreed they weren't kind of fit for each other, but I think Bradford is more of a fit for them. They're a sort of another kind of crazy late playoff charge last season, which just fell short. I think it was 19 points out of 21. He got late on. Interestingly, he's gone with guys again. It's just he knows course and distance form. He signed guys from Stockport who won the league last season. Defender Neil Byrne and midfielder Antoni Sarvejic. That's vital. The guy knows the division, how to get teams out of it, as he did Fleetwood. And I'd be absolutely stunned if Bradford weren't in the mix, and that's why I make them an each way bet at 14-1.
The handicap section of these leagues always fascinates. It's maybe a market that some people aren't obviously aware of, that you can pick a team, one of maybe the unfancied teams, and they'll get 15, 20, 22 points, 10 points, 8 points of a start against the leaders, and you might get a price on them. I probably should have asked you for Championship and League One first, but we'll do this one in reverse order, like it's the Olympic medal ceremony. If you could give us your follow-up to Bradford in League Two, please. Fraser, I think AFC Wimbledon were of interest.
Yeah, I'm going to go with them, AFC Wimbledon. This will be their third season with Johnny Jackson in charge, and I think this is his best chance to prove that he can be the guy to take them forward. I think they could also be a bet for maybe sneaking into the top 7, but I'm going to be with them on the handicap. I thought they were kind of unlucky last year, finishing 10th just after losing their top scorer, Ali Al-Hamadi, to Ipswich. So I'll back them on the handicap. As you say, we go in reverse. Let's go to League One. I'd actually picked one out that it was Wigan in League One. I think they get 21 points of an advantage. Now, they started last season 8 points down, I think, as a deduction, and did quite well to get a 12th place finish. Now, I've got a sneaky feeling Sean Maloney will eventually make Hibs look a bit daft for getting rid of him so quickly. Or, well, sorry, we could maybe say Hibs have been making themselves look daft with changing managers constantly. But yeah, I still think and wish Sean well, and hope he could prove himself a very good manager in time. And he went to a club that love him dearly because of what he did for Wigan.
Indeed.
Winning the FA Cup and playing so well in the Premiership. He's got 2 guys on loan from Liverpool, Calvin Ramsey, who we know, and also Luke Chambers, who we know. He's got 2 fullbacks, and also one of a terrific Brentford player as well, wide player Michael Olak Egby. And I think Wigan look like a team on the up, who could just kind of threaten the playoff places if Sean gets a good tune out of them again. There was enough encouragement in what we saw last season, and maybe my handicap pick plus 21 in League One. And going into the Championship, I already mentioned Bristol City. I think they're getting 28 points in places, and I'd be surprised if Liam Manning wasn't able to lead them to somewhere outside the playoff berth, and that would put them in the frame to get some each way money on the handicap bet, which pays a quarter of the odds first 4 with every firm.
Fantastic, Fraser. As we said, you thoroughly enjoy this time of the season. We all thoroughly enjoy this time of the season. As Scotland obviously captured you last week, and England this week. Will you be making some journeys south this season to try and catch up with some games? I know it's something you've done in the past.
Yeah, well, certainly, as you mentioned, I appear to have a Yorkshire theme to my some of my bets there. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it maybe during an international break or something like that, it might be time to go and check out your teams. It's good to do that. It's good to, if you can. And also, you mentioned there that there's going to be a lot more coverage of the EFL on television this year. Yeah. So, try and check out as much of the action as you can. See what you can spot early on in the season. And particularly another thing we mentioned, look for overreactions in the first couple of weeks of the season to bookies, deciding that what they've seen in the first day they didn't like, but there could easily be reasons for that. I'll give you a little example just to give anyone hope who's first one of their ante-post bets maybe had a bad start to the season, like East Fife. We put them up for League Two last week, and look, they got beat 4-2 by Elgin. Last season, I wanted to get with Aston Villa strongly and heavily to finish in the best without the big 7, and also make the Champions League, trying to get the top 4. And how did they get on the first day last season? Thrashed 5-1 by Newcastle. So don't lose faith.
Excellent. We certainly don't lose faith in you, Fraser. Thank you very much for your betting insight for this week. Thank you to everyone for watching, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.